All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA task list series. We're continuing behavior change procedures with token economies. Token economies are very common in ABA, in school settings, and most instructional settings these days. And you're probably very familiar with how token economies operate. They're not overly complex. That's why they're so useful and used so frequently because they're very generalizable. They're useful in a lot of situations, and they're not that hard to implement. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through how we set up token economies, how we can fade token economies, and then we're going to talk a little bit about level systems. As always, please subscribe if you aren't already for all of our updates. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. So, token economies, one of the most common behavior change systems in our practice, and it consists of three parts. If you've ever worked in ABA in any capacity, you've very likely used or implemented or created a token economy. Now, the main three parts we need for token economies: first, a list of target behaviors. What is going to get reinforced? A great thing about tokens and token economies is they're mobile. You can walk around with tokens. You can use them in a lot of different situations. So you always want to be aware of what are we looking to reinforce so we can have those tokens ready when needed. We need the tokens. They can be tokens, they can be points, anything exchangeable. Typically you're going to see picture cards, right? Or little fake monies, but anything that is exchangeable can be used. Now, be sure that whatever token you use can't be created by the learner. In other words, if you're going to use, let's say, tally marks, make sure that learner can't add his own tally marks. These are things we have to think about when creating our tokens. And then the backup reinforcers, which are arguably the most important piece. It doesn't really matter what you use as tokens because you're just going to pair them with the backup reinforcers. So if our token is just a square, well, we're going to pair those with everything that they can exchange for those squares. And that's what's going to give our token the reinforcing property, pairing tokens with backup reinforcers. So let's say A is a break, B is iPad, C is snack. Those are what we're exchanging our tokens for. That's why tokens are effective. So you have to pick good backup reinforcers and you can't skip the pairing stage. Now, tokens can produce reinforcement, be used in response cost procedures, which is just a punishment procedure, and it can be paired with different backup reinforcers. Again, extremely versatile. So you are going to want to consider first, what are my backup reinforcers? Without reinforcers, token economies are not going to be effective because there's going to be nothing to exchange the tokens for. So these are our three parts, but you really want to make sure you've got that list of backup reinforcers first, and then you can think about tokens and then start the pairing process. Now, let's talk about a level system. So a level system is just a variation of a token economy. And if you're working with one-on-ones, you might not use level systems too frequently, but they're still not a bad idea. And what happens is you use these tiers that are based on performance criteria. So let's say you start down here. This is your initial tier. You might have some relatively simple backup items and the exchange ratio is low, so it's not too hard to earn items. And as your student or learner improves, you might move up to the next tier. You might have better items, but they're more expensive. And then again, next tier, you might have the best items, but again, more expensive. And you can move up and down based on performance. So the better you perform, it opens up opportunities to buy maybe better items. And the reason we do that, and we're going to talk about in a minute, is our economies, our token economies are organic. You don't want it to become stale. You don't want the backup items to not be considered motivating because you want that exchange to keep happening. So with a level system, it's kind of a great way to motivate because not only are they getting reinforcement here, but they're working their way up towards better items. And at the same time, those tokens are keeping their value. It's good at teaching self-management because you can teach them to control their spending, quote unquote, on their tokens, how to save up tokens. You can help them manage how they're going to move up to higher levels. It's good at motivation, and it can lead to more challenging goals. You might start very simple at the bottom, and then the highest level requires something much more complex. So you can be very creative with level systems. And it also helps to thin out our schedule. Let's say the schedule here is an FR1, and then maybe we move to an FR5, and then let's say a VR6. Not only is it getting harder, the opportunity to earn reinforcement becomes less as the response cost or the response requirement goes up. And so you can see that level systems have a lot of versatility. So don't be afraid to use level systems because eventually you need to fade out the tokens, right? That's the whole idea behind these systems is we're fading them out to more naturalistic, least restrictive settings and situations. So a level system is just a great motivating way to start fading out our token economies. Now, how do we design a token economy? Because our design is important. We want to be systematic and we want to think through everything and not just jump into a token economy because everything should be individualized to our clients. So, like anything else, the first thing is to identify what's our target? What are we trying to increase? What are we trying to decrease? What are we trying to achieve? And then what is our plan? What's our economy plan? How are we going to fade it? Are we using response cost? Are we using level systems? All these things need to be decided before beginning the process. Then we can get to 2 and 3. These are kind of the same because, like we talked about, without good backup items, the tokens aren't going to have the same effect. So you want to make sure you have a menu of items that you can pair with the tokens. If you don't use a level system, make sure things are priced correctly. So better items could be more expensive or cost more. And all these things are organic. So this is just the beginning. How are you going to start? And typically with a token economy, when you're first starting, that exchange ratio needs to be pretty low because you want to get the client or learner used to the idea of the exchange. So you want to establish an exchange ratio. Is it 4 tokens for reinforcement? Is it 2 for reinforcement? Are there different levels of reinforcement, different amounts? All these things should be based on your assessments and based on your client's needs. Explain the system, explain it to the client, explain it to your technicians, explain it to the stakeholders. Everyone needs to be aware. Sometimes people make the mistake of thinking, well, I shouldn't explain what I'm doing to the client themselves. And that's just not true. You want to make sure they're fully aware of what they're working for and what they can earn through those tokens. And then you implement, you monitor for fidelity, and that's where your personnel management comes in as a behavior analyst. Now, ongoing token economy management. Token economies aren't just set it and forget it. These are very organic. They're always changing because people we work with, right? They grow, they learn, they mature, they change themselves. Items might lose value, tokens might lose value, items might gain value. We might add items to our list of backup reinforcers. And so that economy, that exchange rate needs to always be adjusted based on current motivation and need from the person you're working with. You want to make sure staff are properly trained in implementing the exchanges correctly. That exchange is very important. It's teaching a very important skill. So you want to make sure those exchanges are always happening correctly. The reinforcement schedule is correct according to whatever you've written. And this is all back to personnel management and ongoing fidelity checks. Don't forget to pair tokens with backup reinforcers. Don't skip that step. Don't just create tokens and then say, well, let's start the token economy. You have to pair those things together by making it very easy at first to gain reinforcement through tokens. And then make sure the economy stays motivating. Tokens do not lose value over time, and the economy is organic. What you don't want happening is the client to earn a bunch of tokens and then not want to spend them because now you've lost your motivating economy. The client must want to spend those tokens on something. And then finally, removing a token economy. We want to be systematic and gradually remove our token economies over time. We're going to thin our schedules just like anything else. So we're going to increase the response requirement to earn tokens. We're going to make it harder. You want to pair your tokens with things like social praise and more naturally occurring reinforcement rather than maybe toys or other items at the client's house. You can decrease the availability of the tokens or increase prices. And then you want to fade the tokens out altogether. Ideally, we're getting rid of the token economy altogether, and we can start using more naturally occurring contingencies. So that's token economies. Really not a complex idea and one that you're already probably familiar with. So we just tried to go over some of the more intricate details of what make up token economies, but there's really should be nothing too intimidating about this idea of how to create a token economy, how to use it, and then how to fade it. As always, please subscribe if you haven't already for our updates. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.